is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at one of the hotter Android tablets of the year. This is the Asus Transformer Pad Infinity TF700. A lot of parts to that name, but simply put, it is one of two HD tablets on the market. 1920 by 1200 pixels right here. Tegra 3 CPU, a new variant that runs at 1.6 gigahertz, and we're going to look at it now. So finally, it's here. We first heard about this guy, oh gosh, back in January of 2012. And everybody who bought an Asus ePad Transformer Prime kind of felt bummed because, well, there's the new model here with the 1080p plus, shall we say, because it's 1920 by 1200 rather than 1920 by 1080 resolution display, and an improved back that allows the wireless radios to have much better reception. So clearly it took some time to actually get this to market. It's just starting to appear now in mid-July 2012, and it's everything we hoped the Transformer Prime would have been and more. Those of you who watched my Prime review know that, well, gosh, I went through about 3 of those because each one of them had some problems, and wireless reception was an issue, light bleed on some of them. Lots of little things that really detracted from the experience. Improved here. It's amazing how Asus listens, honestly. Even things like the buttons, the controls, they redesigned those to make those easier to use. So the Infinity TF700 runs on a 1.6 gigahertz NVIDIA Tegra 3 CPU. That's the new T33S. It's a bit faster. Previously we saw 1.3 gigahertz for the NVIDIA Tegra 3 T30 CPU. So yes, it's fast and it's responsive. And here's the interesting thing. Now, are you going to notice a huge increase between 1.3 and 1.6 gigahertz? Probably not, but this guy also uses faster DDR3 RAM. That can help. And it just speaks to how much software optimization can make a difference. We recently reviewed the Acer Iconia Tab A700, pretty much the same hardware, the 1.3 gigahertz T30 though, with 2 gigs of DDR RAM, but nonetheless pretty killer hardware specs, and it had problems with being sluggish, and this guy flies. The Infinity TF700 sells for what the Transformer Prime sold for last year, so you're basically getting upgraded hardware for the same price, and it's $100 more than the TF300, which was the plastic-backed version of the Prime, essentially, that obviously didn't have wireless reception issues because it had a plastic back that didn't interfere with the antennas on the device. So this guy is $499 for the 32 gig, $599 for the 64 gig. Like the last gen Prime, it's available in either gray, which is a very complex gray. We'll show you the back in a minute because that's what we have. It can look blue, it can look straight dark gray silver, and it can look kind of purpley depending on the light. So those of you guys who are a little sensitive to slight purple tinge, you might want to go for the other one. That's the champagne, which is kind of a light silver, and it's actually not very warm despite the champagne name, so it's not terribly yellowy. I think they both look pretty good, and I'll show you the back now. So here's the back, same swirly metal finish, and this big panel here is still metal. As you can see, the color is complex. If you move it around, if you change your light source, if you add incandescent light, it gets more purple. If you have natural daylight or fluorescent lights, it looks more towards the bluey gray, that kind of thing. To me, this looks a little less shiny than the Prime on the back. But the big thing right here is, see this strip right here? Plastic. Plastic is sometimes a good thing because the antennas for the GPS, the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, they all run under here, so now you don't have metal, which actually really gets in the way of signal performance. 8 megapixel camera here with LED flash, much improved camera as well, we'll talk about that later. This is your volume control, and on the other side, that's the power button. Now these guys have gotten bigger and easier to press. The Prime kind of drove us crazy. Teeny weeny controls, and given the serious slope of the side, your finger just kind of slid right off on the slippery back. These have nice tactile feel. They actually go click, you can feel it, you can hear it, bigger, easier to operate. And the bevel on the side is a little less severe. That is, it's more gradual, so it comes out more before it rounds. So your fingers are not kind of sliding off the side of this as much as on the Prime. On the side here, little things to look at. We've got the micro HDMI port right here, and here's our headphone jack, 3.5 millimeter audio, and this is the micro SD card slot. And you can see the card fits in flush, and I'm running my finger over it, I'm pushing on it now, and the card does not accidentally eject like it did on the Prime. Once again, Asus is really addressing their issues. And you can see that the bevel here, again, is not quite as severe or quick to slope as it was on the Prime. It's a little more like the TF300, so it's easier to hold. You still feel, because this is a skinny and light tablet, the edges will dig in a little bit when you're holding onto it, but not quite as uncomfortable as the Prime. On the bottom here we have the usual dock connector. Now that still ships with a little plastic cover in place because it is somewhat exposed. Not as bad as on the last one, but the little standout connector here seems a little bit vulnerable to me. It's still improved. And these holes on either side are the locators for the optional keyboard dock. And you're familiar with those, the Transformer, the Transformer Prime, the TF300, they all have their docks, and we'll talk about that too. And here on this side, we don't have any controls, but what we have is the speaker grill. Now, Asus has been saying that they put stereo speakers behind here, but if you put them right next to each other, I'm not sure what good it does. Anyway, some of the worst sound I've ever heard from a tablet comes from this guy. Very quiet, not very full. The system sounds are particularly hard to hear. Like by default, the screen tapping sound is turned on, and it's just like this little ding, ding. And you think you're going crazy, and you're wondering, is that the microwave oven somewhere next door in the next house or something like that? It's very quiet. It's okay for watching videos. It's okay for playing games, but you know how games usually are? You turn up to max volume and it's hideously loud. With this, it's kind of just right if you like a nice, good volume experience. Infinity TF700 has Gorilla Glass 2, which is supposed to be even thinner, and indeed, well, it's obviously a very thin tablet, 8.5 millimeters, weighs 1.3 pounds, and it still has that super IPS display feature that we saw on the Transformer Prime, and that means incredibly bright, up to like 600 nits of brightness if you turn on IPS Plus to help with outdoor viewing. Now, just like with the Prime, and honest to goodness with any tablet, they all are still going to fade somewhat outdoors. You're not going to see something that colorful and gorgeous, and reflections, because these guys are glare monsters, is going to be an issue. So is this something for somebody who works outside all day? Not so much, but at least if you do take it outside, say you're shooting some photos or video or something like that, you can crank up that Super IPS Plus to improve viewing. Indoors, you're never going to need it because this thing is wildly bright. In regular IPS mode, it gets extremely bright. The tablet has single-band Wi-Fi 802.11bgn, and guess what? Yes, it works. It has a strong signal. They're like hyper-compensating at this point. Asus. I saw stronger signal strength with this using Wi-Fi analyzer to measure my signal strength than I've seen even on my notebook computers when I'm, say, 10 feet away from the router. And right now we are about 40 feet from the router and 1 floor away. So that's a pretty good distance, several walls, about 5 walls in between. And let's take a look at our signal strength. And there's our signal strength. And you can see that we've got just about 65 dB signal for the network that we're connected to. So that's pretty darn good. Obviously, it's very workable. Speeds also are very good with Wi-Fi. We don't see that precipitous drop-off as you get more than 20 feet from the router. Problems fixed, folks. You can also use Wi-Fi and Bluetooth at the same time now without having something screw up on you. It used to be either one or the other would start cutting out. That doesn't mean that you won't hear sometimes an audio delay of about 1 second. That seems to be an issue with a lot of Bluetooth products where you get that 1 second delay. So sometimes your audio won't quite be in sync with your video if you're watching and using Bluetooth stereo speakers, say if you're watching a movie or something. Asus still doesn't want to list GPS as a spec anymore on the Transformer Pad Infinity, just like the Prime. They took that off the US spec list, but it does indeed have a GPS, and it does indeed work. In fact, it also works remarkably well. Sitting inside of a 2-story house, 10 feet away from a window, ground story floor, Wi-Fi turned off. I got a fix 8 out of 8 satellites in view with 8-meter range of error. So, wow, yes, it works now. So now we're going to fire up GPS status so you can see how quickly it gets a fix. Obviously, we are indoors right now. We are about 9 feet from the nearest windows. And look at that. Awesome. It works. No Wi-Fi. And there we are. Same fix. Working good. In terms of performance, this feels very quick, this tablet. There's no lag, there's no annoyance. I can't wait to see what it's going to be like running Jelly Bean with Project Butter to speed things up even further, because it's a very quick tablet already. In terms of synthetic benchmarks, it does very well. We got a 49.46 on Quadrant. Excellent score there. 12,229 on Antutu benchmark, which is a new high for devices that we've been testing. And for GL benchmark, the 2.1 Egypt off-screen test, 74 FIPS. That's also the highest that we've seen. Usually mid to upper 60s is really pretty awesome. So looking good here. SunSpider JavaScript test, 1903, very good. Not the best we have ever seen on a device, but very, very good score. As usual, Asus has power management settings. This is pretty unusual on a tablet, so you can see more often on a PC. And you can see the options right here. You've got your little green leaf to indicate power saving. We're on balance mode, and by the way, all those benchmarks were taken on balance mode. And then you've got your little high performance there. That's the little flame symbol, a little bit hard to see. And you can see how they've customized this menu right here too. So you have quick access to your wireless, your rotation lock, Bluetooth, speaker on-off, GPS. And here's our switch. We got our brightness slider for IPS, and we can switch to IPS Plus if we want, and we can turn on auto brightness. Auto brightness continues to be an annoying thing. It generally is kind of laggy to notice changes, and it's a little bit on the dark side, so I've been setting it manually. So how's the display on this? It's really stunning. Now, you know me, I'm not really always impressed by these high resolution panels used on tablets, and it does take a careful look at it to notice the difference, but not super careful. This is something, if you hand somebody the old Prime, which was a nice display in itself, and you hand them this one, they're going to say, wow, images just look like three-dimensional almost. They have a level of detail that makes them look that much more real. It's really noticeable. The colors are also good on this, and the color balance is reasonably good as well. It's not too cool, which has been a problem with previous Transformer tablets. Text looks incredibly sharp. I held this up next to several other 10-inch Android tablets, and yeah, you can really see just how much finer, more perfectly made each letter looks on this, so easier on the eyes in the long run as well. How about the new iPad with the Retina display? I would say it's neck and neck and on par with the new iPad and its Retina display. Text is equally as sharp, images on both pop, very nice colors, and well, one thing that Asus has an advantage on is obviously theirs gets a whole lot brighter. The iPad has average brightness, it's certainly adequate, it's fine, and this guy can get, well, super duper bright. And we'll be doing a smackdown between the Transformer Pad Infinity TF700 and the new iPad for those of you who are trying to decide between the two. Now, one thing, if you've watched our previous Transformer Prime video and the TF300, you know that the Asus uses a nice sharp IPS display with high contrast. The refresh was really annoying, and the camera could really pick it up no matter what frame settings we use with the camera. And you can see how Asus has worked on it. They've improved the refresh on it, so it's much more consistent. You're not seeing any of that rolling shutter effect anymore. Even if the naked eye didn't pick it up before, you just have a feeling that this is probably going to be better for your eyes. As you know, this is called the Transformer because you can use this with optional keyboard docks. If you've seen our other video reviews, you know what it looks like. You just close it up, it looks like a clamshell notebook, open it up, you've got a keyboard, you've got a trackpad, and there's an embedded battery in there, another USB port full size, so you don't need any kind of adapter with USB host, so you can use peripherals. And of course, this guy has that option too. Now the color shade is slightly different from the Prime, so there's a little bit of a color mismatch if you try to use the old Prime dock. Asus says that they are not mutually interchangeable, however the TF700 dock hasn't really appeared yet at retailers, and I know some people have been picking up the Prime dock and using that, and they say that it does work. So those of you who still have a Prime and you're looking to upgrade, maybe just sell your tablet and keep the dock. Other than the fact that the Prime dock has a somewhat lower capacity battery, I don't know, it might work. So far it's working for people, but again, Asus says they are not interchangeable. So with previous Transformers, the dock has been $149, and we expect the TF700 dock will be around the same price as well. Now, as I mentioned, you get a full-size USB port with USB host if you get the dock. But for those of you who don't want to spend, say, around $150 just to get a USB port to use USB peripherals, you don't have to. Asus makes, this is their own self-branded little USB host adapter that plugs into the dock connector. Sells for around $18 or so. A little bit hard to find, but if you look online, you'll find them in stores like Micro Center, often stock them. So this plugs in the dock, and there you can see you've got your full USB port for USB host. This works with USB Ethernet adapters, USB flash drives, hard drives including NTFS hard drives, game controllers, keyboards, mice. If there's an Android driver for it, then it will work. And Asus obviously supplies a few extra, like the Ethernet driver, and they also add support for NTFS file system, otherwise you just get FAT32 if you're trying to use your Windows hard drives. So we'll test that out. Now the bad thing about this is, well, obviously you can't be using this in the stand anymore because it sticks out the bottom. Not very convenient. Wish they would do what Toshiba did with the Excite 10 and what Lenovo does with their ThinkPad tablet and have a separate full-size USB port on the device, or even a micro USB port where you can stick in your adapter and still charge it at the same time and just not have it get in the way at the bottom. But that is what that is. So we'll switch to our flat back stand. So like I said, USB Ethernet adapters work. This happens to be Apple's, but the one that Asus makes for their ZenBooks works. Third-party one should work just fine as well. Flash drives, that's easy. A lot of tablets these days in the Android world can do that. But here we have a Western Digital My Passport hard drive that is USB 3.0 and formatted NTFS. And we're going to plug that in. Let's see what happens. The little light is blinking on the hard drive. Preparing external storage. We have our little hard drive icon over here, and it says external storage inserted. And you have two options. If you want to unmount it, you tap the X button right there, which is a good idea to unmount your hard drives first before you unplug them. Or you can tap here to go to the built-in file manager. And here you can see we have internal storage, the micro SD card we have installed, and here's our USB disk. Actually already selected, and this is all the stuff on our disk. We'll open up a JPEG, and there it is. Works just fine. And now for something more fun, we got our Xbox wired controller meant for use with PCs, and we're going to test that out and play the game. Light starts flashing on our controller. And let's play Dead Trigger. There's a game that really needs hardware game control. And so here I am using the controller, moving things around. Sounds like somebody's about to get me. I better run. Look around. This game is so much better if you have a USB controller. So, there it is, it works great. While we're looking at games, and obviously Dead Trigger, very demanding game from the same folks who made Shadowgun, runs beautifully on this. We're going to check out Riptide, because it's one of those Tegra 3 optimized games where you get water reflections and splashes and stuff. See how that goes. It's one of the first Tegra games, and honestly, you know, it's funny, it doesn't look nearly as sharp or as impressive as something like Dead Trigger, which is one of the newest games, but still, definitely fun to play, very smooth. Pretty looking graphics, and hopefully we'll get some splashing going soon so you can see water effects. And there's our water on the screen, courtesy of the 12-core GPU and optimization for that. So it plays just fine. This thing is wickedly good for gaming. And now for the web browser, obviously we have our home page loaded. Scrolling speed is fine. Adobe Flash Player, we've loaded that. It is not pre-installed. Make sure you download that before August 15th when it's going to no longer be available on the Android market. You can see how just sharp and beautiful images look. And the speed for zooming is also excellent. And one thing that's really neat, I mean, why have a 1080p display if you don't watch 1080p video on the device? And we're going to take a look at one of our video reviews that has never looked so good as it has on this display. And that's one of the benefits of having the native Adobe Flash Player here versus the iPad. You can actually choose your 1080p setting. This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at the... So we switched to 1080p, and now we're going to bring it out full screen. This guy has more in common with the Razor, honestly, in terms of looks. Kevlar back, Gorilla Glass on the front, nice looking. So here's, look how sharp that looks. That is just phenomenal. I have never seen YouTube Adobe Flash video looking that good. It's like you can reach out and touch that device. And you can hear the speaker work. Just almost at maximum, so it's adequate then. None of the AMOLED technologies, but very sharp, very bright. So while we're looking at video, why don't we look at some HD video? We have some MPEG-4 high-profile clips here.
sure you may have to as well. We've got calls from
Nice and sharp looking.
Calls coming in on local.
Playing perfectly smoothly.
Just ran away.
And you can see there's no serious light bleed going on here. Our unit does have some light bleed along the bottom. It wouldn't be an Asus tablet if it didn't have some light bleed. But again, nothing that extends into the picture at all, just a little bit on the bottom edges. Really difficult to see unless you're in a dark room and displaying a black background. The tablet has HDMI out. That was another challenging thing for the Transformer Prime because it just didn't seem to work very well. Now with this guy, with our Sony receiver, we play 5.1 audio clips. We still got center and subwoofer only for some reason. That could be our Sony receiver. You'd think that would be a pretty mainstream product. But we plugged into our Samsung TV. It translated down to stereo, worked just fine, and stereo clips worked okay. So, well, that's an improvement anyway. While we're showing off the screen, what better way to do that than look at something like Zinio? Because, man, magazines just look really beautiful on a tablet display, and that much more so in Zinio because really high quality stuff that they have. So we're going to take a look at our own content. National Geographic, you can always count on them to have some beautiful photographs. So there it is, beautiful and sharp. Now for something like this, you probably want to use it in portrait mode. Very, very sharp text, beautiful looking. Even when you zoom it out, it's still just perfectly sharp. You can't see any pixelization around the fonts. Nice, nice stuff. Sharp looking photographs, again, nice colors, very good contrast on this display. It's just lovely. And good speed too. Zinio is a pretty heavyweight application, so when you see it running this quickly, that's a good thing. And we're going to look at Asus's own ebook reader. Now, when the original Transformer came out, it was kind of a lackluster product, but it's gotten a lot better. You can actually do things like sideload your EPUB books now, and it has more features, which is kind of neat. So we're going to take a look at this. You can see I've been reading it, and I have a little bookmark on it. It takes a little bit of time for it to first parse a book when you open it before all the features are available. They really need to work on that. But other than that, and again, it takes a little bit, even though we've had this book open before, they really need to work a little bit on the performance, the speed issue here, but once you've got it loaded, it works just fine. And you can change your font, say we want it to be a bit bigger. Now that's going to make it recalculate pages. That's going to take a little while again. And there's a couple of other neat features. It supports Adobe DRM, so if you actually want to use some of the public library books or other things that have Adobe DRM on them, you can actually enter your login credentials for that. And we've got text-to-speech.
The Kabbalah. On the silver coffee table are crystal bowls filled with pistachios, dates, and fine chocolates, and near the sliding glass doors to the terrace are fresh
there's our wonderful
as large as small
raspy
trees.
Android
There
lady
are
reading.
many other
And it
Persians
highlights the
living in
text it's
building,
reading.
all rich, all older. Many of them are.
And if you want to do highlighting, you can choose your pen or eraser and your colors up here. You can use a capacitive stylus if you want. This is not an active digitizer. It doesn't use a digital pen, but you can use capacitive stylus. And you can do things like circle that paragraph and say, you know, whatever you want right there. So pretty handy. You can do things like bookmark, and there's an undo up here. Check mark if you want to save that. Here's your bookmarking feature. So kind of neat for something that's free and built in. It's actually starting to have a lot of nice functionality. Again, like I said, needs a little speed improvement, but other than that, it's working pretty well. Another neat Asus application that's not new, we've seen this before, but I'm going to show it to you again anyway, is SuperNote. So, as you can see from the samples here, you can do things like throw photographs on here, draw, type, all that kind of thing, and we're going to create a new page. And the reason I'm showing you this really is because the last Transformers, if you use a capacitive stylus, one of these guys, a little rubber tip, it skipped a lot. It wasn't so great for writing always. Much better now. See how smooth that is? Now obviously you're not going to get pressure sensitivity or anything like that because this isn't an active digitizer, but it works. Very easy. And if you want to do something like, you know, write real words, also pretty easy. Write big though, because it does a little small version up here, whatever you've written, so it's expecting you to write really big. And again, it's a little bit hard to write sideways here. Good stuff. All the standard Google applications are on here you'd expect with Android 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich. You've got the YouTube player, Gmail, email, web browser, Google+, it's all there. And the rest of the standard Asus applications we've seen on their other recent Android tablets are here as well. We saw My Library already, we have My Net, we have for DLNA sharing, we have My Cloud, and that's where handy things like SplashTop HD are hidden. So SplashTop HD, if you've seen our other reviews, is a remote access program. It works with PCs or Macs. You run an application on your Mac or your PC, and then you launch it over here, and you can connect to it and remotely control it. In fact, you can even do things like play games. Now, I know some of you are aware that there's also a SplashTop THD that sells for $10 on the market right now. I think that's on sale. It's usually $20, but that one has even higher resolution scaling and can let you do things like play, say, Skyrim or Mass Effect 3, running on your computer, of course, but controlling it from here. And so it would seem like you're playing from here, and you can use that with your game controller that I showed you. Plug into USB, or you can get the Bluetooth one that GameStop sells. So there it is. This is SplashTop HD for tablets, not the THD version. Still very cool, though, so you can do all your computer stuff remotely using this, and that comes for free with this product. Press readers also bundled for those of you who like the newspaper reading experience on your tablet. And we have Polaris Office here. Very handy if you happen to have the keyboard dock that transforms this into a little bit of a notebook. And here you can see tablet optimized user interface. You can do Word, Excel, PowerPoint documents, access cloud storage, access stuff that's stored locally. And we have a variety of templates here, so say you just want to start a official document, just tap on that, and you've got a template right here to make it easier for you, all sorts of formatting controls here. Really, Polaris Office has grown up, and it's one of the nicer office suites that's available for Android. Asus also gives you their little web storage utility here. You get 8 gigs of storage for life for the device, so if you need more space than you've got on the device, or you just want to back up stuff, you can do that. Of course, you can also use Dropbox, Box.net, any of the other cloud services with this too. The Transformer Pad Infinity TF700 has a rear 8-megapixel camera with autofocus lens, f2.2 fast lens, backside illuminated sensor, and supposedly a 5-element lens. For those of you who are not into photography, that's an impressive thing to have a 5-element lens on a mobile device. Is it a high-quality lens still? Well, you know, it is a mobile device. And we have a 2-megapixel camera up front for your web chat, video chat kind of stuff, Skype, you know, Google Talk, all the usual things. But the back camera is so improved. Some reviewers gave the Prime pretty good marks for the camera. I thought it was crappy, to be honest. It just couldn't expose anything to save its life. Often hazy looking. This is actually good. And I'll show you some things that we shot with it. You can shoot 1080p video. And we've got some photographs here. And I was trying to actually give it a hard time with high contrast right here. And you can see it had some problem with exposure, but much better than the Transformer Prime and most other tablets, honestly. There is detail here. There is still some blue in the sky. And you can see how nicely it caught the late afternoon light. There's a warm tone there on the wood. Lots of detail on the hedges. So it did a good job. Shot of the backyard, the pool. Often water can be a difficult thing. Again, another high contrast thing. And right back here, the dark, what could be very dark areas against the fence, often with a lot of mobile cameras, you can see a lot of detail. You can see the bench and the plants and the things that are back there. And likewise here. And just a lot of detail on the hedges, but not over sharpened. It's good stuff. And then here we have, this is a fairly easy shot for most cameras because there's no extreme lighting here, but still we get really nice detail on the bricks, the power outlet over here. I'm blowing it up a whole lot. You really have to blow it up to start to see artifacting on this. So really good stuff. I mean, if you don't mind holding up a big tablet, take pictures. Nice flower shot. A little bit of a purple tint there, but we'll forgive it. And here's a 1080p video that we shot, which is just strikingly good. Here is a video of the backyard at 7 o'clock at night. I wish the sky looked blue. It really does impress people. You can see just I tried to give it a little hard time with the exposure to cause it to do that. And it did have some problems, but it picked up and it adjusted. And audio recording quality is not bad. So, for a tablet, well, that's the best we've ever seen. Asus claims 9.5 hours of battery life, up to for just the tablet, and 14 hours if you use it with the optional keyboard dock that has a battery in it as well. We're still running tests on that so far. It looks like we're going to get about 8.5 hours. But our full review, we'll have the detailed info on that after we put it through some more tests. So that's the Asus Transformer Pad Infinity TF700. Starts at $499 for the 32 gig, $599 for the 64 gig, available in champagne or gray, and there are matching docks that will be available as well. So those will probably be around $149 or so. And this guy is ready for prime time. Let's say everything really works pretty well on it. Maybe a little weirdness though with the HDMI out, depending on what receiver you're using, but other than that, Wi-Fi yes, Bluetooth yes, GPS yes, really awesome 1080p display. It just makes everything look so much better. Also extremely bright, even if you're not using IPS Plus mode, if you're just using the brighter range of regular IPS mode, super duper brightness here. It's extremely fast, it has cutting edge hardware, it runs Ice Cream Sandwich, and Asus has said it'll be getting Jelly Bean, and knowing Asus because they're usually quick with this, it probably will be sooner rather than later they'll be seeing Jelly Bean, and I can only imagine how fast it's going to be then. Clearly, as you saw, it's great for gaming, great for streaming 1080p video, not an easy task to this day for tablets. Plays locally stored 1080p video just fine. Nice camera, very nice camera. It's all here, it's come together, it's good stuff. I give it a big thumbs up. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full review, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.